Okay, I guess I'm all set to talk to you today. I'm using Zoom because it actually uploads to YouTube or Vimeo or whatever so much faster. So when I'm doing these little talks and not in Second Life, well, that's the way to go. What I'd like to discuss today has to do with Thoth's original information to me many years ago about every universal package containing 3 parts to it, I guess we could call it, to simplify it. One is the positive universe. One is the negative universe. Not a negative is bad, but just the opposite, the polarity aspect. And the other is the Neutra universe that keeps the two coexistent and balanced, keeps the whole thing balanced. Now, Neutra, of course, is for neutral because it's neither positive nor negative, and yet it is not embracing the all. How do I want to put this? The Atosic universe, the biggie that we look toward, is non-dualistic. But the Neutra universe, yeah, it's non-dualistic, but it's different from the Atosic universe. It is, this is where things get really hard, explaining anything about the Neutra universe, or really about universes in general. But the Neutra universe is a overseer of polarity universes. And we are a polarity universe as long as we are a world system 1, which we are now. So it is non-dualistic, but it is not a functional, complete non-dualistic universe. It has one purpose, and one purpose alone, and that is to manage polarity universes. If it were not there, the positive and the negative would bump against each other, so to speak, and would implode. So that's basically why it's there. A lot of functions go on inside that manageable interest, which is to keep those dualistic universes intact and functional. There's a lot of things that go inside it, but that is its purpose. Now, the Atosic universe, what Thoth calls the Atosic, is the Grand Dame. She is completely self-contained. She has no living molecules in it, no, what do I want to say, matter worlds in it whatsoever, what we call matter. Because again, what Thoth calls matter, what we call matter, is kind of hard to separate it out, because he does not see matter as something separate from spirit. It's just different grades of spirit which suddenly become what we call matter. But we're going to call this matter, okay? And there's not anything that is matter in the Atosic universe. There are beings, but they do not contain what we call matter in their makeup, in their composition. We have our fleshy bodies. When we leave these fleshy bodies and recycle into our heaven state before we come down and reincarnate again, we don't have bodies either, but we're still a part of the astral realms of our planet. In the Atosic universe, which is non-dualistic, it is completely self-contained, and yet it is totally immersible in all that is. So we see it as, again, the Grand Dame of the whole universal idea, concept, principle, existence, whatever words you want to use there. Are there more than one Atosic universes? I don't know. At this point, I really can't tell you. All I can say is that what Thoth calls the Atosic universe is as far into the understanding of universal spectrum that he has allowed me to see. I would imagine that all of this that we're speaking of is replicable a million zillion times over. So in that sense, there's probably more than one Atosic universe, but not for us, not for our referencing, not for the universes that we work within. Now, let's get back to the Neutra universe. So the Neutra is the managing element of a dualistic universal field. In that field, we have a positive and a negative, and the Neutra, which is between the two, if we want to look at it on a, a linear way, that manages it. But how did the, okay, so now let's look at the universes. We just have one package, okay? We're in our little package here. So Thoth looks at the term universe, because different people are going to look at it differently, to mean a system, a working system that aligns specifically to a set of values and universal laws and contains a certain filter of potential timelines where time is within the quantum frequency of that realm. I know that's a lot of words, but in some aspects of our universe, there is no time. So that's why I had to qualify that. Okay, so where are we here? I'm not doing this, I'm just flying with this. I don't have notes or anything. Some of this I already went over just recently with William Bueller. He was asking some questions, and a lot of these things came out that I actually had not heard before, came from Thoth. Some of them I had, of course, and some of them I hadn't. So I'm trying to kind of put this back together again, and while it's fresh in my memory, and also perhaps add even to that. So when a package of a universal package, a universal field, which contains the positive and the negative and the neutral, it's like a little cell with these 3 neutrons in it or something, I don't know. But, it's got 3 little things in it, little spheres, and it's packaged together in a membrane. Now, the membrane is created by the fact that it is an irritant to the Atosic universe. Anything that's near, it's trying to get into the Atosic, it's trying to get back in. We didn't have a big bang in the way that scientists say, but there was an expansion that was both, well, what do I want to say? It was an experience that launched this universe, or any universe. And it happened, excuse me, you could say simultaneously. That means had a little coughing spell there, had to pause. All the universes that were ever created happened simultaneously out of the need of the core dynamic that is the Atosic universe to maintain its singularity. And so all of these little particles that would have been disruptive of that singularity were discarded, and yet they still exist. And these are the universes, the universal fields. So they developed they tried to come back in to the atosic, to the singularity from which they left. And in doing so, and of course I'm using singularity, there's a lot of different ways you can use that word, so be aware of that, but I'm speaking about it with a capital S in regard to the atosic. So as they come toward trying to get back in the atosic, see, the atosic is this big cell, okay, and these little cell packets are trying to get back in because they were less discarded. This causes the irritation, and the irritation naturally sets up the membrane around the package we call the universal package or field of the positive, negative, and neutral, so that it can't for sure get into the atosic, and it can't irritate it anymore. I'm using the word irritate because I just don't have another word right now. So, not to get into this too far, because this is such mind-bending stuff. We could just be here all day just talking about how the atosic universe and the little particles that we call universal fields, relate and blah, 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 blah. And really, do we need to know this stuff? One, it begs the question, do we really need to know this beyond just a preliminary? So that's really all I'm giving you there. Okay, so we exist in what we're calling here a universal field. Now the positive, there's nothing in the Neutra but the wheels that turn and grind to establish the balance between the positive and negative. The positive has energy, matter. Well, I don't know that the Neutra would have to have a certain amount of energy. Everything has to have energy, but energy in what state? You see, that's the thing. In the Neutra, you wouldn't even recognize the energy as energy. In the atosic, in some levels you would, but on other levels you would not at all. And there are beings, of course, in the atosic. These are where the bright, the beautiful ultra beings and whatever, but they are so far advanced, we're not talking to them. They're beyond all of that in the sense of their I don't know. I don't even have words to describe it. But there is a divine effulgence of beingness in the atosic, but it is non-dualistic, so it is beyond our ability to comprehend or speak about. You could also almost say that God is in the atosic, but God is everywhere, of course. So the positive universe has all this energy and physical matter and bodies and people and things and creatures and everything imaginable. And so does the negative plate of that. It's all in reversed in some ways. It's like a reversed energy field. And it would look very different to us, even though we have our beings. Everything we're doing here is reflected in the negative aspect of the negative polarity. But it is reflected in a reversed manner that we would not even recognize, even though if we could be in our consciousness in the negative universe, we would not recognize the positive as having anything there. So, that's the way it goes. But both of those universes are full of life. The atosic universe does not have, again, any matter in it, in anything of that nature. It's even more unrecognizable to us, but it contains the brilliance, the effulgence of this divine beingness that we actually exist within. A part of our divine spiritual beingness is in that atosic universe, okay? We're in there if you take away the element of time. But we don't, think like we think here, and we don't need to evolve like we do here. It's an entirely different field of reference. So what good does it do for us to know all of this? Well, you could say it really doesn't. I mean, does a blade of grass know all of this, and yet it exists and it's beautiful? And what does Jesus say? Oh gosh, I can't start quoting Jesus because I'm not very good at that. I'm not a Bible scholar of anything, but he talks about, that the trees and the birds and everything, they don't have to know all of this stuff in order to just exist and love life, something like that. I guess I'm taking some liberties with it, but it's not Jesus according to Thoth, that's Jesus according to Maya. Anyway, so we really don't need to know all that in one aspect of looking at it, but in another, we're very curious beings, and our curiosity helps to ground us, helps to place us in the bigger picture. And if we don't go overboard with it, which we tend to do, it's good to know certain things, because you have a sense of place of belonging in that way, or at least many people do. So to know that your universe is part of a divine body, and that divine body contains the Atasic, which is, you could say, the heart mind. It's a complete heart mind in the Atasic. Is that the source that we talk about, of God's source? It may well be. I have to say may, because I've not received any absolute confirmation on that. But I think that you could, in a way, call it the source. But we also have this thing about the golden star of Mazuriel, which is in the Atasic, and that our Earth, and presumably the entire universe, I don't know, but our Earth comes from the golden star of Mazuriel. Our Earth, what does that mean? Well, it came from Rigel. We're not talking about Earth as the solid planet. We're talking about the souls that are drawn to this planet, whether they came from Rigel, or they came from Andromeda, or they came from wherever. They all came from Mazuriel. And so I'm not sure if that relates to all our universe. Does it relate to all the universes? Is Mazuriel a portal that everyone has to go through into be received into the Atasic universe? The golden star, that's what Thoth calls it. Is it really a star like we understand? There are a lot of questions here that I have not yet received answers to, but as I speak about it, I'm feeling into the Thothic stream on it, and I'm getting that Mazuriel is indeed a portal for our universal experience. Now, we need to look at something else here before we go any further, and that is, again, the word universe. Thoth is showing us that as a complete package of experience from the perspective of our human rationale. Whether it's the most distant star in the galaxy as we view it, as we think of it, or not. All the beings that come here from this universe, they are coming from this level of experiential reality, expanded immensely perhaps, but nevertheless in that same experience. So we could say, well, I can see this star over here. This star is called by our scientists Dada. So therefore, it is part of this universe because I can see it out there. That may not be true. Is it a part of the experiential reality of souls that co-create their universal spectrum? It may not be. So you can see how complicated this gets to our little pea brains. It's like, so that's why I've kind of avoided trying to sort all this stuff out. And I'm really not doing a very good job of it at the moment, I guess. But okay, I started off on one path and now I got onto another because I was trying to explain universe. Oh yes, universe. So there's this young man young man. He's 13 years old. And I'm going to put a link to the video. I can't even remember his name right now. I just came across this. And he is obviously an incredible genius. And he is explaining, he's a theoretical scientist, a quantum scientist or whatever, at 13. And he is explaining his theory that those the CERN accelerators and all of that stuff, and the hydro colliders or whatever you call them, created I've forgotten, one molecule or something off everything that we're experiencing here, and what it did was created a whole new universe for us. In other words, it destroyed the universe we were in, and now we're in a new universe, which of course we wouldn't know it if that were the case. And if that were the case, we wouldn't know, okay? So this is a good thought here. However, we have to look at the word universe, because as this young man is using the word universe, it's a little different than Thoth is using it. So I imagine he's using it per the way the scientists of this earth would use it, because he's obviously studied a lot as well as receiving a lot. He knows scientific terms and jargon, and he's quoting it quite profusely. So scientists are looking at the universe in a slightly different way. They're seeing a universe as a progression of our reality, da 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 da. And if it changes, it goes over to another universe. Well, Thoth is seeing that as a change of timelines. And timelines can shift reality spectrums within the universal quanta that you are allowed to receive, so to speak, within the whole experiential reality. So you have this vast experiential reality that the universe is creating, and within that you have gazillion infinite timelines that you can access. However, as this young man points out, there's something beyond infinity, and that is something that we can just completely cannot absorb. There's just no way we can see that. But what it does is it creates a certain rule of thumb as to how these infinite universes can perform within the holographic field, holographic terrain of the mental experience. Mental. And it can be high mind, which is outside of body, but when you bring it down into the physical mental body, it's even more limited in understanding. So he is saying, when he's saying that we shifted into another universe, Thoth would say we shifted into another experiential aspect of this universe via shifting a major timeline in some way. Not major. Well, I don't know, major. It's not extremely minor. Maybe major is a strong word. But anyway, we shifted it. And I checked this, and I received that this is indeed true. However, it wasn't just the Hadron Collider that did it, because we were already on the cusp, on the verge of accelerating into a new timeline field. And the collider, the Hadron thing, when it did its little number, it just gave it a little nudge. And actually, you could say here, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, because the transfer of that energy naturally to another timeline would have caused a creational story to develop as the cause of it. So the Hadron thing could be an outpicturing of the actual event, coming back and creating its own birth, its own reason for birth. I know that's very convoluted, but according to Thoth, things like that happen all the time. Not changing the timeline in that very unique way. But what I mean is, we have a sequence of things, and a lot of times the product is creating the reason for its existence in certain instances. When it's I'm not I'm not going to even go there. Okay, let's just stop that. So going back to this young man's theory that Thoth is confirming, but confirming with slightly different languaging in regard to what universe means, for instance. Also, the young man says in some universes there is no God, in other universes there is. Well, he's equating apparently some scientific theorem that states MC equals, MC2 equals whatever. I'm not good at numbers anyway, so I can't say but you know what I mean, that Einsteinian biggie. He's saying that is God, that creates God, and if that does not exist in the universe, then God doesn't exist. Well, I totally disagree with that. Because God exists everywhere. What we're calling God is a presence that's beyond energy. It is not energy. It can create energy, but it's not energy into itself. And that's something that scientists just can't even begin to imagine. But in fact, it does exist because there is no energy in the Neutra universe. Maybe I'm contradicting myself. Let me just take a moment because this is not easy. Okay, there is energy in the Neutra universe. It's of a quality that is so different from what we understand as energy. But there is energy there because it has a function, and if it has a function, it has to have energy. Now, in the Atosic universe, there is energy too, but there's not as much function in that realm. Anyway, the bottom line is God is not energy. There is something beyond that. And that something beyond, which is largely what is contained within the Atosic universe, is the Godness. If you get into non-energy, you get into Godness. So that I would not agree with. But most of what he said in this video that I'm putting a link to accompany this one, I do agree with. Thoth is agreeing with. And except the part that the CERN actually totally created this event, because the event actually created the CERN reason for the event, which is really wild, but that's what I'm receiving. So what do we do with all of this? Well, we take a deep breath and we need to look at it from this perspective. If we simplify it as much as possible, we are everywhere. And our experiences are numerous, infinite. But the point where we are referencing our now moment, to where I'm speaking to you now and you're listening to me now, because I'm speaking to you in my now and you're listening to this maybe several weeks from now, my now. But we're sharing that now moment because I'm transmitting and you're receiving, and that is sort of a magical togetherness that puts us together in the now moment. So that now moment is really our point of experience, and we can see how it nests in the whole bigger picture. But we can also see the power it has, because the now moment has the power, especially when we synergize our experiences. Like we're synergizing right now. I'm speaking to you from the past, and you're listening to me in your present, and yet we're synergizing this moment. And that has great power, especially when you have a lot of people involved. It doesn't have to be gazillions of people, but a good number. It has enough power, actually, to shift not only timelines, but to reorder Akashic experiences, both personally and globally, universally. And you could say, well, what good does that really do? Well, it does do a lot of good, because we exist to create. We exist to refine and refine and refine. We're kind of like, and I don't mean this as a put down, but the little amoeba in the soup that gobbles up all the excess stuff and poops out light. Now, isn't that poetic? But really, that's what we're doing. And so, you know, we're just gobbling up all this stuff, and we just have to realize that, you know, we really are just pooping out light all the time. And sometimes sometimes we get a little constipated. But nevertheless, that's the flow that's intended, and that's the flow that ultimately takes place. So how do we communicate with all those beingnesses that we are, especially the part of us that is in the Atosic, the part of us that dwells in the non-energy godness? Well, we do that all the time, actually. When we're in prayer, true prayer, not scary, oh, please help me prayer, but, you know, true heart prayer. When we're in meditation, when we're viewing the sunset, listening to the birds tweet, and we're feeling so, when we feel gratitude, we're getting in touch with that non-energy godness. Maybe just for a little fraction of it. But, you know, it's so complete. Every little fraction is a complete whole, sort of like a hologram. And we just need to recognize that we're really doing is we're really traversing our universal field that's inside this membrane that's caused from the friction of our little duality bumping up against the non-duality. And we can traverse outside of all of that and go right into the heart of God, the heart of the Atosic. And it doesn't take that much doing. In fact, it takes no doing. It takes being. When we can be in that moment, we're there. Even though it may not seem that spectacular, if you have that heart moment and you feel the love, you feel the appreciation, you appreciate what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, time stands still for you far more than you realize. Because once you leave the moment, time starts up again. So it just seems like, oh, well, I was there for just a second, but it was nice, but it was just a second. Not necessarily. Oh, yeah, you can look at the clock and say, well, I looked at the clock before I went into it and I looked at the clock after. It's just a second. But see, clocks abide by our linear reality, not by where you went during that moment, that second. So you could have received a great deal of presence. And when you come back, it seems like just a second. But you received it nonetheless. And it is part of your inner subliminal experiential reality. So in creating our new earth, let's talk about that for just a moment. I'm trying to see how to phrase this without going off into entirely explanatory pictures of all of this stuff. We know, or those of you who follow my work, that Thoth refers to the new Earth star as our quote unquote future reality that's coming upon us sooner rather than later. And it involves actually the decimation of the planet as we know it, but the light codes of specific areas of the planet that have been seeding the codes all along, being taken into this new Earth spectrum, along with the planetary genius at the core of the planet that is our compass of who we are, what we are, all that we carry of spirit and light. And these things will go with us, and so will our physical bodies that we happen to be inhabited at the time, or those of us who are not in physical embodiment, we're just going to come along in our spirit embodiment, because remember, when you die, you don't leave the earth, you just go into another astral aspect of it. So we're all coming with, and so is the planetary genius and these golden Taya land codes, as Thoth calls them. And it's all recreated in the new earth, which will be located wise inside the star sun of Rigel, where we left, but it will be a new experience of that state. So that's kind of it in a nutshell about the new earth. And the new earth hologram, of course, is the hologram we create there, because we're living, all universes are holograms, and they come out of the seed form of the moment of divine creation of everything, which is a big thought. But anyway, and so we are, as we live and breathe here now in our now moments, capable of communing with our new Earth star selves. New Earth star beings change, but they don't die and come back in another body and have to grow up from babies again, and there's no entropy, even though it is a dualistic state, at least the pneumasome, the first stage of New Earth, and I think probably most of the stages of New Earth, if not all, are dualistic, but a dualism that's totally different, well, not totally, but very, very different from what we experience here. It has different laws attached to it. Some of the laws are the same, but the ones that are different are real humdingers. They're very different. So we still are in a dualism, but we will be in a world system 2. This is world system 1. So our platform will change. We no longer come back to this zone of Earth. When we die, we go into another astral zone, then we come back, and we die and we come back. It's all in the same field. When we get into world system 2, there is no dying and coming back. There's changing form when we feel guided to do so. But there are negative and positive polarities, but in a much different, more free scope of experience. So we can, in our form here, commune with our new Earth star beings. We can commune with them more mentally. By mentally, I mean we can understand it mentally better than what I was speaking about communing with your Tosic selves, because that's the God moment, and I already went into how that experience plays out. But with the new Earth, you can actually touch into that and have a conversation with your new Earth self. Now it will be brought down through the filter of your mind, so it will play into your vocabulary of your mental self, and you'll come up with some terms and some ways of looking at it that may not be exactly like it is, but it's not going to be that far off, and you can have a communicative experience with it. And there are a lot of other parts of yourself you can be communicating with as well. We're not going to go into all of it, but that is what is important, because that's where we're headed toward in our linear thinking. That's where we're headed toward, is our new Earth embodiment. And it's not embodiments with an S, because it is one embodiment that can change flavors and colors and scopes and all kinds of things, and genders when it chooses a gender, and because there still is a dualistic way to do that. And but it's still one embodiment, because it does not reincarnate. It doesn't leave the body, come back and gather the nefesh back into itself, the elemental body, and have to recreate that form. See, because when we actually this is a big point to all of this. Why do we have to take our bodies with us, those that are still incarnate at the time? Because they're gathering the elemental body with them, and they're taking it with them. And once they do that, for the benefit of even those of us who may not be incarnated at that time, the nefesh has in effect been taken up. It has been resurrected, and it becomes part of the light body. That way, when we enter the new earth realm, we do not have to reincarnate. Nothing is going to pull us down to die in a physical form, have to be born again, all of that stuff, because the nefesh that we've separated from and left in our elemental Gaia realm, in the planetary realm, is come back into our whole spirit body. So there is no more of that, because there is no more world system 1. And world system 2 is so fluid, and so the earth there is so a part of the spiritual beingness that we are, that we aren't separated from it. I don't want this to go on forever, so I imagine I should stop talking at some point. I'm on a roll here. But this gives you sort of, I hope, an idea of all of this. But, you know, more than anything, in order to do our job and gobble up all the stuff we need to and spray out the beautiful light, we just need to be happy. We need to be happy in the moment, not qualifying it. If I only had, I'd be happy. If I only were, I'd be happy. Just be happy. Feel the joy. And when I say happy, I don't mean happy because you're rewarded in some way. The joy of experiencing life, of experiencing spirit, of experiencing this beautiful planet. And I know there's a lot of scary stuff going on right now, but that's all superficial compared to what truly is. And that's, you know, most of you know that follow me know I'm a believer in looking at all the garbage and saying, okay, it's there and it's over there and it's over there. And I see it, I got my eye on it, but I'm not going to be frightened of it. I'm not going to be concerned. I'm going to be knowing, I'm going to be shedding light on this thing. If you ignore it, you can't really focus to shed light on it. You don't want to live on your own little world. You want to realize that all these things exist in their existence modes, but you also realize that they're superficial to the true power element that is the core of light beingness that you represent, that you are. And you can, when you think about it, oh, what did Trump do today? Oh, Fukushima, oh, just send the light. And when I say send light, I'm talking about right from the core of your being. And know, absolutely know, that you are a part of the transformation of that element of poison into light substance. There's one other thing I want to possibly address here, but you know what? I think I'm going to leave it for part 2. And that is all this that's going on now about the concerns about the planet in regard to the possible earthquakes, tsunamis that are coming for the west coast of the United States. Some are saying it might be here as early as September. The geological societies are talking about it. The psychics are talking about it. The channels are talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. And there are other things like the grid's going to go off and the comet's going to hit and all of these things. So this really figures in to what we're talking about here, but I've gone on so long and I'm just going to make it for part 2. So I'm going to end part 1 right now and thank all of you for listening, if indeed you still are listening. So until later, thank you.